Welcome and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Evidently, you're unaware. I am, you guessed it, your host, Andrea, also known as the Successful Diva. And you already know what I am here to do. If you are new to following me or listening to this platform, know that before you leave, you will be elevated in your awareness on some particular topic, issue, or person, something that will help you become a better decision maker in some of the things that impact your life and the life of your family and friends. And so, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started because here's the deal. In today's climate, it is no longer safe to live in ignorance. We have people that are making decisions supposedly on our behalf, and they do not have our best interests in mind. And so I am here, hopefully, to make sure that there are different topics 1 week at a time that allows you to become a little bit smarter. So let's do that. Let's get smarter. Got citizenship? Prove it. That is what is happening in the state of Florida. Florida, did you know that a new bill has been signed requiring citizenship status to appear on your driver's license? Did you know that? That is exactly what Florida's current governor, Ron DeSantis, is saying to Floridians. Got citizenship? Prove it. While Congress remains deadlocked on the Save America Act, which would require U.S. citizenship to register to vote, that requirement will soon become the law of the land in Florida. Now that Governor Ron DeSantis has signed the latest voter integrity legislation. That's right, Florida. The term limited governor has signed HB, House Bill 991, which is actually a part of the SAVE Act, Florida's version of the SAVE Act, into law following its approval this past session by Florida legislature. The law requires people registering to vote to provide evidence of citizenship. Let me repeat that. The law requires those registering to vote to provide evidence of citizenship. What is that evidence? A valid passport or birth certificate. And might I add, certified copy of such birth certificate. It is scheduled to take place and go into effect January 1, 2027. This bill also requires those seeking a new driver's license, the renewal of your driver's license, a replacement of your driver's license in Florida to indicate the holder's citizenship or legal immigrant status. That is why this picture that when I first started was aired on your screen. This law in Florida would require the driver's license to have a display that indicates the holder's citizenship or legal immigration status. In short, licenses will indicate whether the holder is a U.S. citizen or has another legal immigration status. Now, here's, I guess, a bright spot if there is to be one. Current and unexpired licenses will remain valid until their expiration date. So, current and unexpired. So, it's only applying as of January 1, 2027 to those new licenses, renewal of licenses, or the replacement of your driver's license to display that status of your citizenship. You're going to have to prove it. That's exactly what that's saying. But let me go over a few other requirements that are literally embedded. You know, lawmakers, when they're doing something that probably is not favorable or that's unpopular to the common good, or at least the majority of the common folk in a particular city, state, county, or the nation, they embed it. Like they pile a lot of little things that don't seem to mesh together all in one bill. But here are some other components that would come out of HB 991. All voting would be done using paper ballots. It requires the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles to include legal status. I just mentioned that, to include your citizenship status on the license or some type of legal immigration status. Here's a big one. This bill also would remove student IDs from the list of acceptable forms of identification to show at the polls. So it will remove, you have your student ID. Normally, if you're in college, you just kind of show up, you vote, that has your name and kind of where you live. All not anymore. This bill would remove the eligibility of student IDs to be used as a valid form of identification when showing up at the poll. The reality of it is this bill targets Florida's most vulnerable voters, older Black voters who grew up maybe in the Jim Crow South, naturalized citizens, young people, transgender people, low-income voters who may or may not go through all of what's necessary to secure their passport and or their certified copy of a birth certificate. Voters with disabilities, that's a huge group. But all of this is being done in the service or in the vein of perpetuating the fact-free. It's a fact-free myth that there is this widespread non-citizen registration and voting. That has not been proven. In fact, less than 0.0001, I think the last I heard on the stats across this country, where there has been indicators or at least places or at least voting tallies where non-citizens actually voted. So that's a fact-free myth. And ultimately, in Florida, Floridians approved a constitutional amendment back in 2020 requiring only U.S. citizens to be qualified in the vote when it comes to their state's elections. And so I'm not sure what all the hoopla is, but you all know, and I think we all can surmise by now, that this is yet another voter suppression tactic. And Florida, listen up. They are not waiting. The state, the governor is not waiting. The current one, that is not waiting until Congress, Washington, D.C. gets its act together with their version of the SAVE Act. One has been enacted and is set to go into law January 1, 2027. Now, here's some more good news. Several voting rights groups allege the bill is unconstitutional, and they have filed federal lawsuits challenging this new law. And some of those groups are, some of them sound familiar, I'm sure, League of Women Voters of Florida, Florida Rising Together, Florida Immigrant Coalition, and Common Cause, just to name a few. They are fighting this law. So there is some uphill climb, but certainly they are in the fight and they are working to see how to get this bill overturned and ultimately claim that it's constitutional, it's unconstitutional, and is not something that is necessary, even necessary in the state of Florida. But here we are. We have a termed out governor who is brazen, who is emboldened. And I will go ahead and say this as we get ready to wrap up what this is all about. And that is this. He has basically said publicly the quiet part out loud. And I quote, I sign it. They sue us. They go to a liberal judge. The liberal judge sides with them. Then we appeal it. And then we win. So that's probably what will happen on this. I've just seen it enough. End quote. Florida, it is time. You have to be proactive. You don't have a passport, secure one. You don't have a certified copy of your birth certificate, secure one. Because if it's one thing, this administration, and literally the administration on a federal level as well, is that these are power-hungry legislators. They will do what they need to stay in power, at least what they perceive to be power. And they have proven, if nothing else, they've proven this. They do not care about anyone or any other entity whose wealth title doesn't begin with a B or a T. I'll let you put the aliens behind that. They do not care. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast, Evidently You're Unaware. If you have a young adult who will be turning 18, eligible for a driver's license after January 1, 2027, or if you have a young adult in college who uses a student ID to vote, please be sure that you take the proactive steps now. Get ready now. Assume that this thing will go just like the governor has said. That we're going to sue them and we'll take it to another level and we'll appeal it, and that's what we do. And he's expecting that this will go through, and unless and until it does, the onus is on you and on me. It's on us to make sure that we are not giving in to any of the suppressive tactics, to any of the things that will prevent, belabor, and or discourage the exercising of the right to vote, particularly in these midterms, but certainly beyond that. They do not care. They're basically saying if you've got citizenship, you are going to have to prove it. So let's do so, and let's do so proudly. Again, Andrea, your host here on the podcast, Evidently You're Unaware. It is my hope and goal that you will join me, follow me, do all the things that need to be done to stay in contact with me. Andrea at strategicblueprint.info is my email. If you've not subscribed, do so at Evidently You're Unaware on YouTube. Follow me on Blue Sky at thesuccessfuldiva.bsky.social and on TikTok at EYU Podcast. I'd love to hear your comments, receive any questions you may have. Some of the things that go on that we are not aware, is just a matter of asking a question to a person or an individual who can answer it properly. And I believe I am just one of many who can. So comment, send me an email, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a wonderful day.